Welcome to the National Institute for Health and Care Research Mentoring Programme and this professional development webinar series. I'm Julie Haddock-Millar and I'm one of the facilitators on the mentoring programme. In this session, we're going to look at the phases of the mentoring relationship, and it will be no longer than 10 minutes. I'm going to share with you two models that consider the phases or stages of the mentoring relationship and how they typically progress over time. We'll also look at some of the mentoring functions and how they align to the phases of the mentoring relationship. I'll provide some reflective questions and signpost some resources to support you. So what do we mean by phases of the mentoring relationship? All mentoring relationships go through some form of evolution. We see it in literature referred to as cycle, phases, or stages. The first empirical longitudinal study of the development of mentoring relationships was published in the late 1970s, early 1980s by Professor Kathy Cram. And she identified a number of transition points that mentors and mentees go through as the relationship develops and evolves over time. I'm going to share some of that with you in this session. So Professor Kathy Cram identified 4 phases in the mentoring relationship: the initiation phase, the cultivation phase, the separation phase, and the redefinition phase, very typically associated with the majority of mentoring relationships. She also identified a number of mentoring functions that tend to align to the phases of the relationship: career functions and psychosocial functions. So career might include career development, developing awareness of the organisation sector role, but also an enhanced sense of competence and confidence, clarity of role identity in the psychosocial functions. Now, Professor David Clutterberg later went on to identify 5 phases in the mentoring relationship, similar to Kathy Cram's work, but an additional phase. Professor David Clutterberg's work was based on many years of mentoring practice and consulting and leading on many mentoring programs. The 5 phases he identified were rapport building, direction setting, progress making, winding up rather than winding down, and moving on. He also, along with colleagues and associates, created this visual, which really helps us to understand what is it that influences an effective mentoring relationship. So the horizontal axis is about developing rapport, and the vertical is clarity of purpose. Now, ideally, we want to be working in the top right-hand side. This is where we've taken the time to develop high rapport. We have a clarity of purpose for the mentoring relationship. We have shared expectations. The purpose gives the relationship momentum and energy. Now, if we're working in any one of the other 3 quadrants, so top left or the bottom 2, typically the relationship is less effective. It might be task focused. It might feel that we're just going through the motions. Sometimes it can feel that we've developed a fantastic professional friendship. We enjoy spending time together, but there's a real lack of direction or momentum in the relationship in terms of the learning and development that's taking place. Now, I wanted to touch on each of those stages, the first, rapport, as it's so incredibly important when building the relationship. So this is where you're spending time as a mentor and a mentee getting to know one another, developing that mutual respect and understanding, the broad agreement around the purpose of the relationship, aligning expectations, roles and behaviour, for example. And rapport consists of 5 elements. So developing trust, having focus, not just for the overall relationship, but the focus in every session. So being present in each of the mentoring sessions. Empathy, congruence, which is often referred to as the alignment of expectations around what the mentoring hopes to achieve and expectations of one another. And empowering, so mentoring is liberating rather than constraining in that sense. It's exploring, open to all possibilities. Direction setting, again, important in the early stage of the mentoring relationship, where the mentor and the mentee gain clarity about what each aims to achieve in the relationship, how you navigate and use your time together. And this might take several meetings. It might not be clear in the first meeting. I've just inserted here some questions to support with purpose and direction. Of course, there are many that you may ask in this area. So, for example, what does success feel like to you? How might you want your circumstances to be different? Progression. So the third stage is referred to as progression, where the intensity of the learning is often heightened, perhaps at its highest level in the mentoring relationship. Exploring issues from not just the mentee's perspective, but a whole variety of lenses, perhaps. Clarifying the situation, challenging assumptions, exploring options, summarising, facilitating action, commitment. So often we see significant change and transition in the progression stage of the mentoring relationship. And then Professor David Clusterberg refers to winding up and moving on. So rather than winding down, the fourth phase is winding up. So having a plan to close the relationship, celebrating what's been achieved, thanking one another for the time and the commitment. And the moving on, now that might involve reformulating the mentoring relationship. So are you going to continue outside of the programme, informally, for example? What does that look like if you are to continue? Might you decide to consider working together, for example, for further 6 months or 12 months? Or are you going to close the relationship? You've done all you need to do and the mentee is ready to move on. Perhaps the mentee is ready to transition to the role of the mentor. So that purposeful choice and the giving thanks and the celebration that happens in the winding up and the moving on stages. So just a few reflective questions to take away and to think about. For example, how might you structure your first or second mentoring meeting around some of those themes or topics that I've highlighted in the slides earlier? If you're at the stage where you're coming towards the end of your mentoring relationship, what questions might you explore in the winding up or the moving on if you are coming towards the final few months, for example? So, as I say, a number of reflective questions to take away. There is a topic guide that accompanies this session, and I've extracted some key references there and some links that you may want to go away and do some more reading. And if you do have any questions at all, you're welcome to contact our programme team with the development and support email here. Thanks so much.